Hi guys, Rich from Trackspark here. Hope everybody's well and had a great Christmas and New Year. Um, and yeah, January now, so back to the grindstone. Boo. Right. Um, anyway, today's or back into music creating. Yay, yay, nice one. So anyway, back to what today's sort of tutorial is going to be about, and it's sort of a multi-frequency bass. So taking your bass synth or bass sound, or even lead synth sound, and splitting it up into sort of multiple sort of frequency bands, and then putting them back together and mixing them, and then this way, you've got more control over the mix itself and what it's doing, and more options to play with the different frequency spectrums and be a bit more creative as well. So I thought that was worth sharing with you guys. I think I've done one on kick drums and things like that, and I think I've done one. I maybe applied it a bit to the bass sound as well before, as well as other things in a tutorial. But this one's got an extra sort of a third tier to it, I guess. So I'll play you a little bit of the tune. The mix isn't finished, and there's a couple of parts missing, but this is this is the rough sketch of this little section. So there we go. So hopefully you could. I mean, there was a few weird things going on there, but hopefully you could obviously hear the beats, the relationship of the beats and the bass, the synthy sound. So what I'll sort of do now quickly is just play you the bass sound. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm just going to turn a couple of these off so you can sort of hear better what's going on. I'll do that again. Okay, there you go. So that's what we're going to be discussing today. Right, so what I've got a synth. It's a Native Instruments synth, Monarch, and so I've got three parts here: sub pan, sub high, and sub deep. So all of these parts stem from this sub synth that I've got. So here's the actual sub itself. Yeah, and what I've got there is I'm got a low pass filter on it, so anything sort of above 125 hertz is starting to roll off. So we're just getting the low frequencies. I've got a bit of compression on it, soft compression from this LA2, and the nice thing about these is it's a slow attack as well, so it's really soft and it beefs it up, but I'm not losing any sort of transients. Not that there are any massive transients in this part anyway, but I'm not losing any of those transients. So that's the sub part. So that now I'm just going to turn that one off. Now I've got exactly the same synth, so the same patch, same instrument. If we went back, you'd see that it was called A-Train. So I've got this same synth. I've got pretty much the same settings, apart from I've got an extra oscillator on this one, which is 2 octaves higher. I'll just pull up the old patch, actually. So if we look, the cut-off's the same. The cut-off's in the same place and all of that. But I've actually got this oscillator 1 turned on, which is 2 octaves higher than this one here. So this one here, oscillator 1, isn't turned on for the deep sub part. And then I've got an extra oscillator giving me sort of higher frequencies, which is obviously what I want for this part. But so let's just listen to this on its own. slightly more attack on that synth. And what I've got is an EQ, so I'm EQing it sort of. I've got a high pass and a low pass filter at 125 again. So my frequency for the deep sub, and then this one are just about crossing over. There's not too much crossover. And then I've got a low pass sort of. I've got a roll off from around sort of 1k going there, so it's cutting off any sort of really high frequencies. So it's like a mid frequency band spectrum. And then I've got this little Moog filter on here. It's not doing lows, it's just adding a bit of body. Yeah, so nothing huge, but just a bit of drive and a bit of resonance and body in there. So nothing mega to worry about with that. So now if I was to play those together, I've got the same synth, but just crunched up a little bit. And I've got control over this frequency spectrum to play with in my mix, which is the whole point of this tutorial. That's what I want. Now the extra bit is taking your bass synth again and making a third tier, so using the high frequencies, and this way you can really start to crunch it up, do interesting things, and get more harmonics as well. And it will just fill out those higher frequencies better, which is obviously again useful for if you've not got really bassy speakers, if you're using, I don't know, if you're listening to through an iPhone or a laptop and you're losing all the bottom end, then this way you're not losing all of your synth part, all of your bass synth part as well. So those are the factors you've got to obviously take into account these days when everyone's listening through laptops and small speakers and iPhones, etc. So the third tier is called sub pan. And what I've done is, you could do the same thing as what I did. You could duplicate this sub high part and then EQ it again in the same way, but using high frequencies. But I've just taken a send. I've created a send track here in Cubase, and wrong button. And I've sent it to, and I've obviously named it sub pan. So I've sent a signal from my sub high into this channel here. So now I've got it set to post fader. Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one. I've got it set to post fader here, so that if I was to now listen to it, bring down my sub high channel, I can hear sorry guys, right, try again. Okay, here we go. So that's exactly the same sub high synth or signal coming into this. And first I've got it EQ'd. I've obviously got a high pass filter from around 500 with a bit of a roll off, bit of a not too steep, but so just to clean it up in the instant, automatically. And now I've got this distortion plugin on driver, so that I can really distort those higher frequencies and get some really cool harmonics going in. I've got a little bit of compression on there, a nice sort of slow, soft compressor again. And like I say, the beauty of it is I'm not losing any transients. And then finally, because I've got sort of a distortion plugin on this, you start getting lower frequencies coming in again from the distortion plugin itself. So I've stuck this another EQ on the end of the chain, just to make sure that I'm cutting out all those sort of low frequencies. And we can see here it sort of starts at the 1 to 2k range, which is where my mid-range sort of synth started to roll off. So again, my crossover is happening in the same sort of frequency area. Yeah, I hope that makes sense to everybody. So now again, I've got this third tier, this third layer of the same bass sound or the same synth sound, and I've got more control over it within the mix. So if I was to now bring back in my mid-range one, there we go, that's about right. But I've really crunched up my higher tier, which is I don't want to start doing that to my other levels because everything's going to start getting distorted and muddy and messy. Now I can add in my sub. So there you go. That's basically it. And finally, on the higher frequency one, my sub pan channel, I've added in an auto pan just to make it a bit more interesting. It gives a bit of movement, and I've got this sort of tremolator, which adds a little bit of pump and pulse and just a bit more interest, really. So those are the extra options that I'm talking about. I've given it more sort of stereo interest and width, and rhythmic as well. And you know, I've been able to do that without messing up the actual sort of lower frequencies. And then I've got all of these three channels in a subgroup here, so they're all in, and then they're all in the same bus, and I've got some sidechain compression from the kick and the snare going onto those. But again, so I've split them all up, put them back together through one main bus for sort of ease of control and better control of the mix. Right, so one last little listen. Hopefully you can see sort of what I've done there, and hopefully I explained not too much kerfuffle about sort of, you know, why I've done it, and hopefully you guys can try the same. So have a great January, guys, and I will speak to you soon. Cheers.